If you were an early adopter of generative AI, you may have used models like Anthropic 2, Claude, or even earlier on, regular Claude and Claude Instant. There's been a significant amount of evolution in what the models are capable of, but also in the API that the models are using. So we went back to some of our early customers who had adopted Claude and Claude 2, and we helped them port those changes into Claude 3 or even Claude 3.5 Sonnet in some cases. Now, the changes are relatively straightforward, but they can be time consuming to test if you don't have evals. So I've sung this from the rooftops many times, and I'll repeat it again now. Build your evals, understand what your inputs are, what your outputs are, and find a way to either programmatically evaluate them or even just have a human go in and verify them as part of your testing process. Let me give you some very concrete guidance if you're moving from Claude 2, 2.1 into Claude 3. First, pivot to the messages API. This much more closely matches the OpenAI style of constructing prompts and roles within an API. And this lets you get rid of all of the human and assistant prompting in the text. And it also makes it easier to provide system prompts. Second, you now have the ability to add multimodal capabilities within these models. So if you're using Claude 3 Haiku, Sonnet, or Opus, all of those have multimodal support. So you can base 64 encode an image, and you can send it in as a message and a media type in the API. And you can also simultaneously send additional text or other components. And that lets you go and build really interesting and powerful generative AI applications that were previously not that easy to build. Now, one other thing to talk about are the changes in the style of prompting. So with Claude 2, there was specific guidance in how to structure your prompts. So it included all the normal stuff like assume a role and provide specific examples, and much of that remains true. But one of the pieces of guidance, given the 200K context window, that guidance has adjusted so that you put as much of the information above the instructions as you can. So keep the instructions for what you want the model to do as close to the end of the prompt as possible, and then keep the context that you're referencing somewhere in the middle. So you'll provide a quick preamble in the top of the prompt saying you're assuming this role, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Here are all my documents. You can consider using different kinds of formatting. XML is particularly effective with Claude. We've also seen asking it to output YAML can save some tokens, but it's also equally effective at outputting JSON. So take advantage of those prompting techniques. And if you just Google Anthropic Claude 3 prompting techniques, you'll find something. You may even find a blog post that we wrote and that shares our real world experience with it. But the last thing to consider when you're adopting the new Claude models is how you can take advantage of tool use, how you can take advantage of function calling. And this is much easier with the Converse API and the Messages API that have been exposed through Bedrock. And if you've thought about how to describe tools before and how to manually parse these using regular expressions and using Pydantic and using other kinds of frameworks to take types and take content and shove it into some schema, a lot of that work has been removed and put into the API layer. So it can save you a lot of time when you're leveraging the Converse API through Bedrock. If all of this sounds complicated and you just don't want to do the work and you understand what needs to happen, but you don't have the bandwidth, but you want to take advantage of the new models, the better per token pricing, well, Kalen, we've done this for over 100 customers at this point, and we would love to help you with it as well.